Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. And we welcome you to HTE's webinar, which is all about discussing acoustic interior design. My name is Peter Aylett, and I am joined by Maurizio Conti, who's the founder of HTE. How are you, Maurizio?
Absolutely well. Thank you very much, Peter. And hi, everyone.
Fantastic. We're going to be spending between about 45 to 50 minutes talking about how to combine cutting edge acoustics with real, true, fantastic interior design. And as a basic high level view of introduction to HTE, this is what we do. We build amazing interiors for high performance AV spaces. And when I say high performance AV spaces, that can mean a number of very, very different things. It can mean a dedicated home cinema. It can mean a home recording studio. It can mean a professional mastering studio. It can be a multi-purpose room in a residence, right through to working with interior designers to custom make some really, really incredible acoustic elements, acoustic designs that turn what could be a quite challenging space, like a very, very bare dining room, into a really, really lovely, human-centric, brilliant place for conversation. And as I said, over the next 45 minutes, we're going to be describing to you exactly what acoustic interior design is and how we think it can fit really, really well into your project lifecycle. We're driven by three core beliefs, and these beliefs drive everything we do as a company. First thing we believe is that the single most important component of an AV system is the room. You can take some fairly modest but well-engineered equipment, put it into a fantastically engineered room, and it is going to sound absolutely amazing. The other end of that is you can take the most expensive, the most highly engineered, the best audio components on the planet, put them into a suboptimal, challenging room, and they just won't sound very good. And what we believe is that when you're considering any space to be used as a high performance AV room, the first discussion that you should have is about the room. Start with the room, because that's the single most important component. Our next core belief is that we really believe that great acoustics and great interior design absolutely should not compromise each other. So often what happens is that there's a technical design for a space, and then there's an interior design vision for the space, and it's a fight between those two stakeholders. We don't believe that should ever happen. We believe that you should be able to engineer really, really, really incredible flawless acoustics, but still say very, very true to the interior design vision, so that little, if any, compromise has to be made on either side. And our third belief is that when you're putting together these rooms, when you're actually building them on site, that should be really quick, really predictable, and really easy. We want things to be simple. We don't want these last minute coordination headaches when you have multiple contractors on site, all having done different elements of the room, and things don't quite come together in the way that's predictable. Our system is engineered in a very, very different way, and we'll be explaining that over the course of the webinar. And that way makes it super, super easy, super, super predictable, and super, super quick. This is us, Maurizio at the top and me at the bottom. Combined, we have over 65 years of industry experience. That's a lot between the two of us. And Maurizio has had HTE as a company since 2005. He's been an integrator for over 35 years. And the HTE system really has been a labor of love for Maurizio, refining that system to what it is today. I've been in this industry about 30 years. I'm very, very privileged to currently serve on CEDIA's board of directors. And I also do a lot of teaching for CEDIA, collaborating on standards and educational materials. We're going to switch our video off now, so it's not too distracting in that top left-hand corner, but we'll see you again quickly before we finish. So, HTE, what is it that makes it unique? The first thing is the acoustics. We do something really, really, really different when we look at how to build acoustics into a space, and I'll be explaining exactly what that is on the next slide. But the fundamental thing that what we do is, because we're taking control of the entire room in terms of construction, in terms of realizing the interior design vision and in terms of implementing the acoustics, we can integrate the acoustics into the very fabric of the building. So rather than being considered as a separate element, our acoustics is truly integrated. And one of the things that makes us very, very unique is our ability to control bass frequencies. And I've put that star down next to 80 hertz simply because a little later on, I'm going to be talking about the different grades, the different levels of room we do. And one of the big differences between the rooms is the amount of control at low frequencies that we can implement. As I briefly touched on earlier, our system is very, very predictable and very, very simple. And the reason for that is the whole thing is prefabricated off-site in Italy. So rather than getting to site and everyone getting their saws out and getting their tape measures out and figuring things out on site, which isn't the best place to do it because that you're under time pressure, it's dirty, there's lots of different contractors running around. We do all of the design, all of the engineering, and all of the manufacturing in advance. So when we ship the system to you, it ships as a very, very modular thing that all you need to do is put it together on site. There's very, very little joinery or sawing or cutting that needs to be done on site. And because of that, it's very, very, very fast. And Maurizio will be talking about exactly how fast it is in a second. We can also integrate joinery, we can integrate seating, we can integrate storage, we can integrate almost any kind of motif or design element that's been conceived by the interiors team. And because it's all integrated, because it's all thought about together, and because that's all pre-manufactured and built off-site, when all of these elements come together with the final build, we've already thought about it. We've already made sure that it's definitely going to work on site. Every single one of our rooms, you can add isolation on. So when we talk about acoustic interior design, that's all about controlling the sound, controlling the energy within the room. When we talk about isolation, and isolation, some people call it soundproofing. I would argue you can't make something soundproof because that means it's impervious to any sound pressure level possible. We call it isolation, and it's hugely, hugely effective. It stops the sounds from outside getting into the room and can be just as importantly stopping the sounds that are inside of the room getting out to the rest of the building. And finally, everything we do is custom. We don't believe in pre-built packages. We look at every single system individually. We look at every single room on its own merits. We take the performance requirements, we take the interior design requirements, and we engineer every single room on an individual basis with real love, care, and passion in our factory in northern Italy. So this is what we're all about, and this is what everyone else does. If you look at the majority of acoustic systems that are out there in the marketplace, they consist of what people often call acoustic panels that fix to a wall. And these panels, they can be absorbers, they can be more broadband absorbers that absorb some bass, they can be absorbers that just absorb bass, they can be diffusers, they can be diffractors, lots of different types of panels. Some of them made by some manufacturers, if you like that kind of thing, you could argue that they look pretty good, and some of them do. But what tends to happen in most interior spaces is all of those acoustic panels are then covered by some kind of stretched fabric system. Now, what makes HTE unique is that we don't do that. We do something completely different. And that is, we leverage the fact that we have an air gap between the face of the system that you can see in the room and the wall behind it. So on that picture where you see acoustic interior design panels, that is the essence of our system. And those are usually fabric wrapped, but we can have those designed in many, many different other finishes, including wood, if you want. And those panels are connected to the wall using a proprietary system. And this is really the essence of what Maurizio's developed over the years, called Alu Connect, which are the horizontal connectors coming out from the wall, and then Alu Stud, which is a vertical aluminium stud that the panels then fix to. And unlike a stretched fabric system, if you put your hand against one of our panels, it's going to give a little bit because we'll allow a bit of a gap between the fabric that's wrapping it and the MDF behind, just so that you're not going to get any buildup of dust or dirt. But you're going to feel a pretty solid surface. And because we've got that air gap, we can play some really, really clever and some really, really advanced acoustic tricks. So as I said, every single system's custom. And these panels, and they come in many, many different sizes so that we can build up the interior design element true to design vision. They can either be absorbers, they can be diffusers, they can be diffractors. And the really interesting thing about what we do is because we're covering every single wall with our panels, and because we've got that air gap between the panel and the wall, effectively every single wall becomes one, or really four, because you've got four walls, one big giant bass trap. So we don't really consider bass traps to be a separate element. And all a bass trap is really an absorber, but it's an absorber that absorbs low frequencies. And that's very, very challenging to do normally, because normally to absorb low frequencies, you need something that's quite thick to absorb that broadband. Or if you use something called a diaphragmatic absorber, that doesn't have to be as thick, but then it's very, very difficult to get enough of them in a room to have a significant effect. With the acoustic interior design system from HTE, every single wall in effect becomes a bass trap. So our system really does sound phenomenal at low frequencies. And we use a combination of different thickness panels, different thickness of the absorbing material we use, which we call ecofiber. It's something that we have made specially for us. And then on the panels, we can play around with how many holes we have, the size of those holes, and the pitch of those holes. So we're really tuning our system in to the specific requirements of the room. It's really, really sophisticated acoustic engineering. And to give you an idea of how this works in the real world, I'd like to show you a quick video. This has been given to us, or we're allowed to use it by the integration company that actually did this project, who are 22 Integration from London in the UK. So thank you very, very much, guys. And I'm going to let Maurizio talk you through what you see in the video. Over to you, Maurizio.
Thank you, Peter. So you're going to have here a demonstration of how the system comes together. What we are doing now is to prepare the structure for the front wall, where the screen and the three left, right, center, and right channel have to be installed into a proprietary back boxes that you see now going on place. And the two subs goes on the corner just behind the structure. So there is AluStud and AluConnect on the front wall, but not only, also on the side walls, you can see all the AluStud coming together, connected to this silver part that is the Alu connection that goes to the wall and allow to have a wall completely flat, even if the basic wall is not really flat. What you see on the back, those four silver column, are the HVAC system that is concealed under the rise that we have built previously, exactly as it have to conceal the complete system and doesn't annoying with any kind of noise. And so that was the main concern that we had, to conceal the HVAC system correctly. After that, we have installed all the side and the back speakers into proprietary boxes, and also the two subs in the back have been connected to the wall through silent blocks, so no vibration gets on the wall itself. So we have a kind of decoupling for every speakers on the wall. And then you have at the end see the system that was coming together in a way that give you exactly what's going on at the end, with all the paneling going on the walls, covering every part of the room. And just the one on the back that is covering the projector is being made in a second moment and ship it over to be exactly fixing, as you can see it here. the back part where the projection is there. And this is the way we finish the walls. As you can see, everything is trimmed. Also the interior, there is a space for a PlayStation. And this small trim on wood that divide the panel was a request from the architect. In this room, in this occasion, we have also supplied all the seating made by measure and prepared on a design coming from the architect. So what we can say is that we have worked with her to prepare the room in the way she was looking at in terms of design, but every single piece of the room is working to give to this room the best sound possible with the best control over the acoustic. So what you can see here is the results, but is also the acoustic treatment of the room itself. Over to you, Peter, now.
Thanks, Maurizio. My apologies for accidentally clicking the mouse and advancing halfway through there. It probably put you off your kilter with your little talk. Thanks, Maurizio.
No worry.
And you've seen a couple of our designs already, and we just want to give you an idea that lots and lots of different looks and feels and aesthetics are possible. Here you see 3 rooms that, again, look very, very different. And again, you're looking at 3 rooms that have completely different looks and feels. And one of the things about these rooms that you now see that I'd like to point out is the room on the left and the room on the top right. Those of you that have been to the industry shows CEDIA Expo in the US and ISE that's so far been in Amsterdam, you might have experienced those rooms because these were rooms that we built on the show floor with a speaker manufacturer partner that we had back then. And it gives you an idea of the level of finish and the level of detail that is possible, but also the speed. Bear in mind, these rooms had to be built on a show floor with the time constraints that you have with that kind of build-up. So the fact that everything was thought about in advance, everything was prefabricated in advance, everything was built, designed to the nth degree in advance, means that these rooms came together, including the installation of the equipment and all the calibration, in around 4.5 days. And you just couldn't do that with a system that you had to physically build on site. This is only possible because of the unique way that HTE is prefabricated.
And if I can, there is another point that I want to clarify. It's not that the fact that we are only able to build up our proprietary room, we're going to probably talk about that in a minute, but we are also able to get into one given room, and without touching the wall with a screw or whatever, we can build one of our acoustic interior design completely detached from the main walls. And this is also to answer to Simon Gregory that was asking about a solution to allow one of his clients to have a room like this without touching the wall because they are not allowed to. So we can build a self-standing room away from the main wall of the main room, having it completely correctly build it and define it in terms of acoustic, and also the acoustic system, the audio system, and all the part can be installed without touching the exterior wall of the room itself.
Thanks, Maurizio, and thanks, Simon, for that question. I mentioned earlier that we build rooms at 3 different performance levels, and this gives you a very, very high-level view of some of the differences. If you want to know more about the differences, please contact us, and we'll spend more time talking with you one-on-one, because we can get quite in depth in terms of what we can do with a 24-bit room that we can't do with an 8-bit room. Now, we're audio geeks. When Maurizio came up with this, the whole concept of 8-bit, 12-bit, 24-bit, that comes from the audio world and describes different resolutions of audio signal. And when we go from 8-bit to 12 to 24-bit, really 2 things happen. Firstly, as we go higher in terms of grade, the performance of the room increases. The fact that we're using more depth means that we can use even more tricks with that airspace that we have between our system and the wall behind it. So as you go up in performance level, we're giving you more acoustic control, especially at low frequencies. The other difference is that with that depth, we can do some really, really cool three-dimensional stuff with design. So again, with a stretched fabric system, it's not impossible, but it ends up quite messy if you're having lots of different stretched fabric elements around cupboards, around niches, and around shelves. But with the acoustic interior design system, we can leverage that space that we have between the front face of our system and the wall and build in things like niches, shelving, other decorative elements to give what would have been quite a flat looking room some really, really, really lovely three-dimensionality. And this slide also gives you an idea of a lot of the other things that we can integrate. We can integrate the flooring to make sure that any elements that we're using wood on the walls, that design element continues through seamlessly to the floor. We can also build the risers and the steps that rows of seating sits on. So really, our requirement for a space is that you give us 4 walls, a floor, and a ceiling. We need to ensure that we've liaised with the other contractors to make sure that any heating, any air conditioning, those things are in the right place. We need to liaise with the electrician to make sure that all their services are in the right place. But really, apart from that, our system can encapsulate the entire fit out of a room, all 4 walls, the floor, and the ceiling. And when we consider every single room, when we talk about performance, when we talk about high performance AV, when we talk about standards, when we talk about acoustic engineering, both Maurizio and I spend a lot of time and a lot of effort working with a lot of people so that we are really, really, really involved with the creation of these standards. I'm very privileged at the moment to be the chairman of the group that is currently rewriting the CDS CB22 recommended practice for, currently the name is Home Theatre Recommended Practice Audio Design. We're going to change that title slightly. But once it's complete, and we're looking for probably the end of Q3, beginning of Q4 this year, this is going to be the standard and the reference for performance performance AV space audio design. There will be an accompanying document to it that'll be called CB23, and that will encapsulate the video design for the space. I'm also very, very privileged. I'm both ISF certified, and as of earlier this year, I am an ISF instructor. So in terms of looking at the audio performance of the room, the video performance of the room, you can be pretty sure that Maurizio and I are both absolutely at the bleeding edge of driving the industry forward with those two aspects. And when we use this phrase acoustics, when we talk about what makes really good sound in a room, I've tried to simplify a very, very, very complex topic into 4 slightly easier to understand elements. I completely appreciate that a lot of you listening to this, you're really, really up on your acoustics and what makes good sound. If you want to elaborate on any of this, if you want to find out more about what we do acoustically, please get in touch and we can have a much, much more detailed offline conversation about it. But we're looking at these 4 elements to try and make it simple. And the first one is bass quality. You've noted I've put bass quality and not bass quantity. Getting lots of bass is really, really easy. You can just turn the bass up. Getting bass that is fast, that is defined, that is musical, that has real impact. So when a gun fires, when Arnold Schwarzenegger drives that juggernaut through a concrete wall, you can really, really feel it. It has a visceral quality. That's actually quite difficult, and it's made even more difficult to bring that same bass quality across multiple seats in a room. The HTE system really helps that. Firstly, because we do deliver that broadband bass absorption. Because we're absorbing bass to quite a bit below 80 hertz, you might think, but why do you want to absorb bass? We want more bass. Well, you want the right amount of bass, and it's physics. You cannot get over the laws of physics. that when a subwoofer produces a bass, that bass goes out into the room. Some of it gets absorbed in the walls. A lot of it gets reflected back. And it's the waves coming out from the subwoofer and coming out from the speakers, mixing in with the reflected waves that creates what we call the modal response of the room. And that means that you can be sitting in different seats, and in some seats, a certain bass note, you'll feel that it's about to liquefy your liver. But that same bass note in other seats, you might not hear it at all. You can do this experiment really, really simply at home. Take a subwoofer, play, I don't know, something between an 80 to 100 hertz tone through it, and just walk around the room. Figure out what you hear. And what you will hear is that some places will be really loud, some places will be really soft. And it's kind of ironic, it's kind of contradictory, but actually sometimes to get more bass, you need to absorb it, because the more bass you can absorb, the weaker the reflected wave will be. And when that reflected wave adds up to the incoming wave, rather than getting these big either reinforcements or cancellations, you're flattening that curve a lot. So the first thing we do really well is bass quality. Second thing we enable is spatial resolution, and that's the ability for a system to place sounds in a 360-degree sound field accurately according to artistic intent, according to what the director intended. And the first important thing for that is that you hide speakers. And the reason being is that your visual system will override your hearing system when it comes to telling where a sound is coming from. If you can see the source of a sound, your brain will position that sound according to where you're seeing it. So if you can see speakers, your brain's always going to be thinking, oh, I can see a speaker there. So yeah, that's probably where the sound is coming from. Whereas if you hide the speaker, it's just your oral system, it's just your hearing, and you perceive a much, much better 360-degree sort of dimensionality, much, much higher spatial resolution. Next thing is detail. And detail is all about controlling the reflections in the room. We talked a little bit about bass reflections. Now we're going to talk about everything that's above bass. So everything where you really want the performance of the speaker to shine. And what we make sure we do is that because we look at every single room individually, we make sure that we control reflection very, very, very effectively. We make sure that the reverberation time is as linear as possible from bass right up to high frequencies. And I'm going to come back to this discussion of reverberation time in a second. And the other thing is isolation. If the room is noisy, let's say you've got a noise floor in the room of 38 dB, and the speaker is reproducing a fine bit of detail, just a fine bit of detail that's a spatial cue, and the sound pressure level of that is 33 dB, you're not really going to hear it because the noise in the room is going to mask that sound. So isolating the room, making it really, really quiet, really adds a huge amount to both the detail the system's able to reproduce and also the sense of immersion of that room. And finally, we like our rooms to be very, very, very human-centric. Human-centric is a phrase that in the technology in the industry, people usually only put in front of lighting. But really, we believe it should be put in front of everything we do to leverage technology to make buildings better and to improve the lives of the people using those buildings. So making a room human-centric, a lot of that is down to linear absorption. And I'm going to ask you all a question now. How many of you have been into a home cinema that the second you've walked into the room, you've almost felt like you've got a head cold? You kind of feel like your head's stuffed up with cotton wool. It's not particularly comfortable. And the reason you're feeling that is in terms of acoustic treatment, what the designer of that room has done is just put lots and lots and lots of foam everywhere and absolutely killed high frequency and most mid-range reflections, but completely left bass untouched. And that is absolutely not natural. That kind of scenario does not exist in nature. In nature, you're not going to find spaces that have those acoustic characteristics. And all you're doing by just putting lots and lots of foam everywhere and killing all of your high frequency and most of your mid-range reflections is, firstly, the room's just not going to sound very good because we need some reflection in a room. Our aim isn't to get rid of reflection, it's to manage it. And the second thing is, it's just not going to feel very good. And what we find with a lot of our rooms is that people don't just use them to watch AV content. They'll go in there and read a book. They'll maybe go in there and do some yoga because it's a very quiet space. It's a very relaxing space. The lighting is fantastic. The acoustics are absolutely beautiful. And finally, the interior design vision has been met. So the spaces are just as much a feast for the eyes as they are a feast for the ears. Again, that was such a quick run through some of the acoustic considerations we take. If anyone wants to go much, much deeper into the geekosphere and discuss this at a higher level, I'm really, really happy to have that conversation offline. And with acoustic engineering, depending which level of room you have, there's many, many different options that we have, many, many different products that we integrate within the acoustic interior design scheme. And you're looking at all of these things on screen now as engineering products. The customer could be completely unaware that any of them exist because they're hidden within our system. The exception is the panel that you see on the right. And that's a unique thing that Maurizio conceived a few years ago, and it's actually boiled aluminium. So aluminium is melted, it's boiled, and then it's flash frozen. And that surface, that substance, is a very, very, very effective diffuser. And you can probably see below it, there's some blue light. We can easily put an RGB light behind that and make that a real standout feature in the room. Backlit, they look absolutely stunning. Again, it's not for everyone. It's not the only thing we can do, but it's just an example of one of the design features that is a real synthesis of very, very advanced acoustics and really, really cool interior design. We've talked quite a lot today about isolation. And the main thing to discuss with isolation is that one size does not fit all. Different construction techniques for the building require different isolation methods. But over the years, Maurizio has developed a number of different systems suitable for any construction technique that can be integrated into the room. And then once the room isolation has been completed, then the HTE acoustic interior design system is then built on the inside of these spaces. So there's systems for ceilings, there's systems for floors, there's a number of different systems that we can use for walls to really, really effectively isolate a space. We can go really ultra custom. Thank you very much to Guy Singleton from Imagine This for allowing us to use these photos of a project that he had a couple of years ago where a customer bought a pair of Bowers & Wilkins Nautilus loudspeakers and put them into a very, very, very bare, empty, highly reflective, highly reverberant space. And they just didn't sound very good. So we worked with Guy and we worked with the client to come up with some custom acoustic products that were modeled on the look of the speaker. So the speaker has a very organic shell kind of look to it. And we custom engineered the panels to mirror that. And this is a really important part of acoustics because interior designers, architects, clients spend a lot of time making sure that the sense of sight is satisfied, that places look beautiful, that the sense of touch is satisfied, that surfaces and finishes feel amazing, even that the sense of smell is satisfied by getting good airflow through a space. But far too often, acoustics isn't considered. And as an example, the room I'd like to give you is a dining room. Many people, if you think of dining room, oh, that's a place that people go to eat. But I'd argue that actually a dining room is a place that people go to socialize. It's a place for conversation. And great conversation is as much about having great acoustics as anything else. So, because of our design capability, because of our manufacturing capability, we're able to work with interior designers, work with clients to build really amazing, ultra custom design elements that can be integrated into the designer's vision for that room, but also provide fantastic acoustics to the space. I'm going to hand this over to Maurizio for the next couple of slides just to talk about production and then discuss a really cool product that we're about to release. Over to you, Maurizio.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, here, as you can see, is one of the facility we use to produce our panel. And as you can see, we have a very large CNC machine that is able to work through a parametric program that we have developed to define all the little detail that we need in every panel. Because every panel, as Peter was mentioning before, is a combination between reflection, absorption, and diffraction. So every single piece is made with the acoustic results in mind. And even if from the outside it can be the same, can look the same, they have a reason to be in that place. So when you receive the batch of the panels have a number on it, and you have a puzzle to place on site, and then you go one by one on the wall, on the alustat, and you have made it in the way it was intended to. When we define also the covering, for example, we define all the details on the kind of fabric, but mainly what we do is to do a nesting to have all the panels that are oriented on the same direction, to keep exactly the color and the reflection of the color on the same way. Because if you turn around the fabric, the reflection of the color will be slightly different. And when you have a complete wall, you will find out which is the panel that is made differently than others. So once we have defined the nesting and how many meters of fabric we need, we normally order 10%, 50% more to have a little bit in storage for having some panel redone if something happened or something have to be modified, because every room that we build can be easily modified and updated with new system. Is a very nice story, the one that we built the BMW showroom in Lyon. We made the presentation and the opening of the new theater, and the day after, we take down the complete system and we rebuild it with an immersive system. So stepping up from a 7.1.0, because there was just a normal system, up to an Atmos complete system, without changing more than 5 panels in the complete room. Over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Maurizio. I'm going to hand it straight back to talk about something that we've developed called The Cove that we're very, very excited about. Maurizio.
Yeah, this is the new project. It's something that goes nearby the things we were talking about, to build a room without touching the wall. This one is a room that can be built inside an empty space on a show floor for manufacturer, or also in a loft or large spaces where you don't have the good position to have an installation of an high-end cinemas. If you can go back for a second to the panel that was naked without the panel. This is a structure that we have built after years and years of experiment. And this one, for example, is the one that has embedded the space for having HVAC, cabling, and space for a projector that is built outside of the room itself. Every panel is one near the other and connected through a very easy way to be connected and secured. Clearly, we have also doors and everything, but this is the way to have a very isolated room into a large space where you can install a very high-end system and allow you to have the performance that you need from the system that you're going to buy. Clearly, everything is connected together. Also, the ceiling, as you can see, goes inside very quickly and very easily. There is a space for the HVAC circulation of air. But the nicest thing is that when you get into the room itself, the room has already places where you can hang a plate for speakers, because you have threaded hole where you can screw in your base for the speakers. So you don't need to destroy anything on the panel. It's made to be safe forever, let me say that. And clearly you can have a simple and easy way to manage an acoustic treatment if you would like to. And also clearly a complete acoustic interior design can be also fitted into the room. We have basically two height, is 3 meter and 3.5 meters. The dimension is just a multiple of 1, because the panels are 1 meter large. So you can decide the dimension you want. And we can be defined also to the half meter, because we have also the half meter panel. So it's a very, very easy way to build a space for enjoying a nice environment that has the same human-centric feeling that you have in a real room, in a real concrete room, let me say. So the same feeling can be found out in this new cove. That is the idea of having a very large space that you can then dismount and take it away if you have to change your house, or you can move it around if you need to go and do whatever. Over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Maurizio. Maurizio's already covered some of the use case scenarios for Cove, and it's an amazing blank canvas, as Maurizio was describing. The fact that we've pre-threaded the interior so that things can be fixed and then detached, and you're not screwing into the actual panels and destroying them, means it can be used again and again and again and again in a very flexible way. And this is really only the beginning. Well, I've got some examples here of residential, professional, and commercial applications. Some of them that we're really, really excited about. From a residential point of view, throughout the years, I've discussed cinemas with quite a few clients. One was a very, very wealthy banker from New York who was renting a house in London. And we talked through what he wanted, and he realized that he is just not going to get what he wants without building a proper cinema in his house. And he couldn't, because he was renting. But with a Cove, someone could purchase a cinema. It could be built inside a Cove as a standalone thing, as a standalone element. And then when they eventually move back to their home country, it can all be packed up into a shipping container, shipped across to wherever home is, and then rebuilt there. So a very, very cost-effective way of building a cinema. From a professional point of view, what we're really excited about is just the repeatability. So if there's a company who's setting up some Dolby Atmos mastering studios around the world, they're going to want the engineers to go from studio to studio to studio and get absolutely consistent results, so that one studio sounds identical to another. When you're building in a conventional way, maybe one building is timber frame structure, one is a concrete structure, the rooms are different sizes. It's difficult to get that consistency. But with a Cove, you can have that absolute consistency. And it also gives companies the flexibility that if they're renting a big space, they can assemble Coves in those spaces. And then if they decide to move offices, all that investment stays with them. They're not spending money on a fit out that then they can't take with us. So some really, really, really amazing opportunities, different creative ways to use a product like the Cove. If you want to talk deeper about any of these, please contact us. We'd be very, very happy to carry on the conversation. This is the old way that certainly I worked for many, many years. Many of you are used to. That when you're creating a high performance AV environment, there's many, many different people involved, from someone designing the acoustics to then having to source all the different materials. You're going to have someone on site building the joinery, building the timber structure. Maybe you're getting that in prefabricated from outside, but either way, it's another piece of the chain. You've then got a separate stretched fabric contractor coming in. There's some really, really easy to use systems these days that allow you to do that yourself. You can usually get a pretty good finish the first time, but the second that fabric needs to be taken down and re-stretched, or over time, perhaps someone stumbles and puts their hand through the fabric and it needs to be re-stretched. It's difficult to get a consistent finish. And also, if you're integrating other elements into the room, cabinets, shelving, niches, lighting, seating furniture, a bar, all of these different elements are going to have to come together at the last moment on site, with all the potential integration and coordination issues that that's going to bring. With HTE, it's just completely different. We engineer the acoustics. We build everything off site. When it comes to site, it's modular, it's easy, it clicks together. There's no stretched fabric to distort. There's no stretched fabric to fall through. Everything is pre-done off site, and we always order a little bit more fabric that our panels are wrapped with than we need, just so that there's some spare left over. And just to make it really, really clear, yes, our panels are wrapped with fabric, but it's completely different to a stretched fabric system, because if you put your hand on one of our panels, it's going to be solid. With a stretched fabric system, you're going to feel all the way through, potentially to the wall behind. And finally, with an HTE system, we can liaise with the interior team and potentially build all of the joinery. We can build bars, we can build cabinets, we can build shelving, we can build niches, we can integrate the lighting, we can even make custom seating. And don't forget that all of this is going to be made by Maurizio's incredible network of artisan producers in northern Italy. So you're always getting the finest Italian design and really, really quality manufacturing. So when bringing all of this into the process, there's just a couple of things I'd like to talk about. And the first thing is, we'd really, really like, if you work with HTE, we would like FaceTime and engagement with the interior design team as early as possible in the project process. I know that sounds obvious, and I know many of you are thinking, well, of course, that will be a luxury for us as well. And the reason for this is we can build almost anything, but some designs from an interior designer will look at as HTE and go, wow, there's going to be a lot of ultra custom elements involved here. Can we do it? Yes, but that's going to push the price up. If we can liaise really early with the interior designer and let them know how the HTE system works, how it goes together, some of the ways that they can incorporate their design vision, but in a way that it's really, really easy for us to manufacture, then we're keeping costs and we're keeping development time much, much lower for the client. In terms of design and then approval, we very, very much like taking control of producing the renders ourselves. And the reason is, once we've worked with the interior team, we've worked with the architect, we've worked with the designer, we have a concept that we want to get approved by the customer. If we produce the renders, we can then be sure that we can build that in a really cost-effective and efficient way. So we're very, very happy to do the renders. And we're also really, really good at doing video walkthroughs. This is what I would call a medium res walkthrough. It's better than the basic ones you see. It's not super, super high res that takes a lot more time and a lot of money, but it's absolutely enough to show a client and for them to go, oh yeah, I really, really love that concept, but could you change this? Could you change that? Could we have a different color? Because it's so, so, so important to set expectations. And because you're just dealing with one company, potentially for absolutely everything that you see in that room, because we're producing the render, because we're potentially producing the video walkthrough, we know we can build it. We know that what we show you is realizable in the real world. And these renders and these videos are such an important part of that design process. Our lead times, we don't really like committing to lead times, but what we'll say is 95% of time, it's going to be between about 8 to 10 weeks, which might sound a lot, but when you consider that it's a completely custom product and that we've been involved with the project from the very, very concept stage, um, most people find that absolutely acceptable. In terms of installation, we think it's really, really, really easy. And we think that if you're competent enough to hang a screen on a wall, if you're competent enough to fit things and maybe do a little bit of work on a cabinet, then you already have all the skills necessary to fit an HTE system into a room. We'll always provide support. That's included in the cost. If you'd like us as HTE to install it, that will be an additional cost. We need to talk about what we're doing, what other people are doing. And one of the things we found is if you want to bring a contractor in to fit the HTE system, pretty much the perfect skill set is a kitchen fitter, because they're very, very used to bringing pre-engineered, pre-made joinery into a space and then doing a really, really amazing job of lining everything up and fitting everything. But we also find that once you've done your first one, the second one is just an absolute breeze. It really is incredibly simple to install. And then finally, handover. The way we work with a lot of companies is we'll attend for the first 2 days on site, get everyone going, make sure all the right bits are there, make sure everyone understands how the system goes together. We'll then let the people on site get on with it, and then we'll come back for a day or two at the end just to deal with any very, very small snags that might pop up. And we can even be around and help with the calibration and leverage Maurizio and I joint 65 years of experience in high performance audio. So the question that many of you at this point are probably asking is, so Peter, how much does this all cost? And it's an incredibly tough question. It really is like asking an architect, I want to build a house. What's that going to cost me? And the architect will probably say, well, per square meter or per square foot, it's going to vary from this to this. In order for us to give you an answer, we're going to need to find out a lot more questions. We as HTE also appreciate that you need to have some kind of concept for what the system's going to cost. So to make that a little bit easy, we've put together some numbers. These numbers are based on 3 different sizes of room, 6x4 and 7x5, both 3 meter high, and then 10x8 at 3.5 meters high. That 10x8 room is a huge room. And then you've also got the 3 different levels of performance, 8-bit, 12-bit, 24-bit. There's also an isolation option at the end, because the isolation option is independent of the level of the acoustic interior design. Isolation is either going to work or it's not going to work, and we know our systems work. So you can take those individual costs, and then if you want isolation as an extra, it doesn't matter what level you have, the isolation option is always the same. Please, if you've got any projects that you're thinking about, if you want to dig deeper into what these costs include, what these costs don't include, we really like to have that discussion on every single project independently. And in terms of what next, if you want to learn even more about HTE, if you have some projects in mind, if you'd like to talk to us more, for the Americas and for the UK, we have some amazing distribution partners. In the Americas, it's Todd Sutherland from Selective Design, and in the UK, we have CAVD, which is Jamie and Wayne. For everywhere else in the world, for now, we serve you direct. We're really, really happy, as I've been rattling on about for the past hour, to talk to you much, much, much more in depth. We can usually turn around a budget proposal within about 24 hours. And when I say budget proposal, it's not a fully engineered quote. In order to give you a fully engineered quote, we're going to need time with the interior designer, potentially time with the client. We're going to need to spend a lot of time during the design phase. Depending on the project, some of those projects we might ask for a design fee, others we might not. We really have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. But if you've got a project and you'd like to know, oh, all right, kind of what's this going to cost, then we can turn around that budget proposal very, very fast for you. I hope that's given you a good overview of HTE. Remarkably, we're pretty much on time within the hour. On screen, you see the email address for both Jamie in the UK and Todd in the US. You've also got Maurizio and my direct email addresses. We would love to carry on this conversation with you. This is a custom product. Every single one we make is different. So whereas we can have this generic conversation about what it is we do as a company, you really only begin to fully understand the benefits of HTE once we get deeper into a specific project with you, which is something we'd very, very much like to do. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Really, really appreciate your time. And we hope that we'll engage with many of you afterwards. Thanks, everyone.
And hello from Maurizio. I was supported well by Peter. I hope that really you want to come over and have more information about this. That is an incredible way to define and build something that is exceptional for every of your customer. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.